Good morning. I'm Michael Golden, and I'm here to tell you about Educurious. So 4 of us got together about 2.5 years ago, a venture capitalist, entrepreneur, and the co-founder of the George Lucas Education Foundation, a learning scientist and professor of science and math education at University of Washington, the former dean of the College of Ed at University of Washington and Bank Street, and now the head of Teaching Channel, and me, Michael Golden, who was a former executive at Pearson. I ran the global education business at Microsoft and Deputy Secretary of Education in Pennsylvania. And what we wanted to solve is this question: how do you actually reinvent the experiences kids have in high school? And beyond that, all schools. It's really a complex issue, but what we think is the most important is build it on learning science, build it on the research we know, how kids learn, and the effect that can have on their engagement and their success in school, particularly the outcomes. So we've built it with the student in mind and thinking of students as developing experts on this trajectory towards mastery. We've built it in such a way, having core curriculum, that students change their identities and their roles in classrooms. But curriculum change is not enough, so you have to change the instructional practice in schools as well. So we're transforming the role teachers have to facilitators and guides, and thinking of them also as developing experts on a trajectory towards mastery, and thinking about how they redefine their role. And finally, we know there's a pent-up demand of professionals in the world who actually want to give back and work with students. But there's never a mechanism or technology to enable them to interact in an efficient and scalable way. So we have working professionals give students the challenges they work on in school, and then they come back and give them iterative feedback on their work. So National Screenwriter Guild screenwriters give students feedback on their screenplays, or climate scientists give students on their experimental design. They get that feedback directly. So the goal of Educurious actually is to think about Web 3.0, using all the web tools of 2.0 and social media to change the experience in education across the country. We've built 2 exemplar courses that are project-based blended learning courses I'll explain in a second, on English language arts and in biology for high school. But those are just exemplars. We've also built and seeded a variety of experts across the country and recruiting them at scale to iterate and work with students. And we've also managed to create, or we're in the process of creating a tool that begins to seed the creation and crowdsourcing of projects. So eventually all those things get to this point where we have really reinvented what happens in schools. So our blended learning approach is using the best that technology can provide and the best that can happen in a classroom. It's learning to do, as Michael Horn typified of our work in his best of 2013 things to look for, and learning by doing. Students are given a challenge by a working professional, and then they work on a problem and project-based way on the current challenge that that professional is working on in their work. And the iteration between them and within that deep and direct feedback, that authentic feedback from students, fundamentally changes their role in the classroom. There's multimedia, there's gameplay, so students begin the infectious disease by playing Pathogenica, which emulates the transmission of the AIDS virus, and they learn the science of infectious disease transmission through that game. Or they work really closely with screenwriters or fiction writers to be able to create a screenplay, but tied to a strict academic prompt of evidence-based learning and an evidence-based argument, a college-level skill, and the requirements therein. And thinking about the social media and how that takes this to a whole new level. We've worked with 3,000 students in 50 schools across 7 states, and the experts have volunteered up to 700 to date in this iterative model. What we're finding is really remarkable. Students actually want to come to school for the first time. Students are increasing the rigor and their expectations of their students, and they had no idea that they didn't have high expectations before. The pre and post data is startling of the impact it's having on students. And then students are actually changing their identity, their aspirations for the future, because in working with professionals, they now have visibility into careers and professions they never knew, and we're all a product of our network, and they have the opportunity to see the trajectory of careers that took those people to get to the place where they became. Also, teachers are actually changing their role and their identity in the classroom. They're repositioning themselves in a totally different way, much more as a facilitator and guide than as the instructor in the classroom. And as they identify the requirements of that, we give them a whole array of professional development to support that transition. It's a big market, and our goal is to take the places where we've actually integrated our programs and continue to penetrate those and expand across the country, but also to think about the bigger picture, this Web 3.0 vision, where all these pieces can come together, and you can actually crowdsource projects, you can crowdsource challenges. Working professionals in companies or industry groups pose challenges to students, totally independent of the courses, and then this notion of volunteering their time to give back. That's the national service model, thinking about X-Prize challenges or teachers asking for volunteers to help them on projects and manifesting this community that builds support. Thinking about the notion also of the course creation tool is giving the learning sciences and the pedagogical approach and all the educational background that most content experts don't have. But they bring this great array of expertise to the party. And if we can support them through a design process and a tool to take that work to the open education resource community, it really is an amazing opportunity ahead of us. So this is where we are now. These are the states we're in. And we want to increase the penetration in those states, as I mentioned before, by expanding and then expanding beyond that. If you think of a national system of experts interacting with these students and then the capability that has to drive the future, then tying in these projects that are being created around the country and manifest that in a new community that'll create Web 3.0. It'll make students and encourage students to come to school, to want to come to school and have aspirations for the future that literally they had no idea that were possible for them. So that's our model. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'll be here after the session and happy to talk to you. It's amazing to see the students and the teachers changing what they think of their future and thinking about the opportunities ahead of them. And it's a pleasure to share our story with you today. Thank you.